If you have an on-the-job injury, you have to know how that injury is treated. And by that I mean this. Injuries are treated in two categories. Fingers, toes, hands, feet are treated as a scheduled injury. You can actually look at the schedule if you go to the Code of Alabama 25-5-57. It has a list of fingers and toes and hands and feet and eyes, and it tells you how many weeks are paid for each injury. And that may seem gruesome, but that's the way it is. It became popular in the early 1900s to do that. Your little finger is worth 16 weeks of pay. Your thumb is worth 62 weeks of pay. This finger's worth 43 weeks. This one's worth 41. A hand is worth 200. And you can look at the schedule and you can see what an injury is worth. And it goes into how far the permanent loss of use is. You may have a finger that is just permanently disabled. It might not work, might not function. It doesn't have to be amputated. You still might be entitled to the full number of weeks for that. The other type of injury, and the ones that we most often see, are hip, shoulders, neck, and back. And those are vocational injuries. And that's a very interesting type of injury, because that type of injury, a vocational injury, means that you might not be able to go back and earn the same amount of money you were earning before. Let's say you were working in a plant and you were busy and you were doing things, good use of both hands, and you were making 20 bucks an hour. And let's say you bust a shoulder or your back or your neck and you can't lift and carry and stoop, squat, bend, and do those things you were doing before to earn $20 an hour, and you have to go to work in a gas station, you're making 8 bucks an hour. Well, you know, now you've got about a 40% loss of access to jobs and a 60% loss of pay. So we're going to look at that instead of just a percentage of loss to the shoulder, which may only be 10%. You may have a 60% loss of access to jobs and wages, which might translate into a very large percentage loss. Now, for a hip, back, neck, or shoulder injury, 300 weeks. So if you go back to the same job, making the same money, it's the physical impairment, 10%, 300 weeks. If you go back to a lower paying job, then it's the lower paying job, the difference in the wages. And that's based on your age, education, training, and experience. Not somebody else's, but what you could do, okay? So you have to analyze each case based on that person and what they can do and what they can't do. So when you look at your injuries, it's either scheduled or it's vocational. And even death is scheduled, 500 weeks. And then only if there's a surviving spouse or dependent child who's a minor. So all of these injuries fall into two different kinds of categories, scheduled or vocational, and both can be maximized if they are handled right. Don't waive certain types of claims just because you don't know how to make them. Call me. I'll be happy to answer any question you have about workers' compensation. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I really like helping people, so call me. Thank you.